We have a lot of questions. What was it like producing your first cinematic film, or what are the difficulties that you faced? How the team as a whole, from all these different backgrounds, how did they all holistically resonate with the lady's character and her story as a whole? Or what are the next plans for EK, and what are the future plans that you have down the line? Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It comes to us with great delight to finally have you, and I'm sure it comes for our audience alike to finally have their eager questions answered finally.
It's my honor, Brother Ali, to be here on objectively the greatest show on YouTube. The al-Habib show.
Astaghfirullah. I like that comeback actually. May Allah bless you, inshallah. So, dear Brother Abdul Malik, we have a lot of questions, and we have promised our viewers to have their questions asked. Now, firstly, to build up, we would like to know, as a member who has been part of this journey for the past 5 years and been there from the start, we would like you to express to us, what was it like producing your first cinematic film as a Lighted Kingdom on a newly launched production company, let's say. And what did you feel, or how did you feel when you first saw the film after its full completion?
Bismillah. Again, thank you for having me, Brother Ali. It's really my honor. So just a quick point on the role executive producer, because a lot of people mix this up. There is a producer who's Matthew Cooper's, and then you have executive producers. So the key person is the producer. He's the one that brings everything together when it comes to film production. You have above the producer a lot of times numerous executive producers, because I've got some confusion from people. They've heard executive producer Hussein Ashmir, Mehdi al-Husseini, and then myself. So there are usually multiple, or there can be multiple executive producers, and they have more of an oversight over the producer. Usually it's quite at a distance, key decisions and whatnot, but in our case, because of the unique film, we were just stuck in the mud with the producer, with the creative consultant. So it was quite a unique role, much more involved than executive producers would usually be. But in terms of the question you asked, I mean, it's been a very long journey, and I mentioned yesterday on the FedEx TV stream that just on the day of release, it hit me how the film is here. It's almost like suddenly I woke up from this dream, and I get flashbacks of the day when His Eminence Sheikh al-Habib, the writer of the film, announced this project, and then the day when the film came out, just the two connected in my mind, because at that point at time when the project was announced, I wasn't a part of the production company. I think obviously the production company wasn't born at that time. So at that time, it was me as a lover of Fatima Zahra, peace be upon her, hearing about this brilliant project. And then, of course, as time went on and the team grew and the production company started, but it's just a dream how after all this time, it's a reality. It's a tangible film that people are watching. And it just hit me. People are sitting now watching the film. We're seeing their reactions to this film.
Yes.
It's something wonderful. I don't know if I've tackled your question. I'm going all over the place. Did you have a specific?
What was your first reaction upon seeing the first film when it was first put to place? There is a script. Yeah. I'm sure you were part of in the making of the script and doing the required, speaking with making it happen, basically making it become a reality. But how did you feel when you first saw the film put together?
That's a very interesting question, because a lot of people think that it's all positives when you're involved in making this film, but there is a really big negative, which is I never will get to experience the film as a fresh viewer. A complete film, you see it from start to end, and everything's new, and that I can't imagine that feeling. Someone who knows Fatima's story, salam Allah alayha, and then seeing it visually suddenly. That's That's gone for me basically, because the team involved every step of the way, you see it build piece by piece. So when we're sitting down watching the final thing, every scene we've already seen it 50 times because we were involved in the editing stage, post-production, VFX. Every part of the Lego piece, we're experiencing it. So, but I say that to you, but would you believe me that when I sat down and watched the final film, I cried still, knowing every scene in detail, the actors, every single aspect of it. I still cried because there was something magical when I saw it the first time fully. It was in a surround sound, very very high quality, like a professional surround sound cinema. And it was the first time I heard the sound. Craig Pruis's brilliant work he's done on the sound with the CGI, because they were still patching in CGI piece by piece. But then I saw it all together: the sound, the CGI, the color grading. So it was like there was still that magic. Even someone who's seen it 100 times, it was still magical, and I cried in that moment.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. How or what are the difficulties that you faced, knowing that this is a newly founded production company, United Kingdom? What are give us an insight as to the challenges that you faced with making such a out-the-box film, really?
It's quite known, Brother Ali, the film industry is one of the hardest industries, the most competitive and stressful industries. Obviously, United Kingdom is working with various professionals like Matthew, producer, John, the creative consultant, etc., etc. These people have a long history in the film production, and from their stories, because they told us a lot of their stories, from their journey, it's like the film industry is basically eaten them alive. It's a very difficult industry to work in, and can you imagine? Obviously, with our film, it's twice, 3 times, if not 4 times harder, because we have all the difficulties with the historical accuracies, the religious sensitivities. We have all the battles that we're facing that I don't need to go into as well. The team that are involved in the production company, we've got various other duties as well that we've got to keep going. So the challenges were plenty of challenges. But if I was to bring one thing specifically to the table, of course, if you ask that question to Mehdi Husseini, he was involved in the shooting. He'll probably give you specifics about the shooting days, which I wasn't specifically involved in. But from my side, obviously, COVID hit at a very critical time in the film.
Correct.
It hit about the time when we were going deep into post-production after the filming was completed. And if anyone was following the news at that time with the film industry, the film industry basically came to a stop. It was a huge catastrophe. The films that were filming at that point, they suffered greatly, because filming you need a lot of face-to-face things going on and on set and all that stuff. Alhamdulillah, for us, we just got the filming done and COVID came hard. If it was any later, it would have been a real huge disaster. But even in post-production, there's huge struggles to take into place, because even when it comes to sound work, you got to go to studio, bring people in. There was a lot of plans actually we couldn't do. I mean, I'm not sure what I can go into, but because of this, but we're just trying to maneuver through. And someone like Matthew Cooper's brilliant producer, all his contacts and all his knowledge of the industry, helping us find solutions every step of the way. At some points we were wondering how we're going to make it to the end of post-production, because just in case anyone's not aware, post-production, you got the editing, you got the CGI. Our film's very CGI heavy. VFX as well. You got to get all that in. You got grading, you got the sound with Craig Pruis. You got putting all that together. Then you got the various other elements like the credits and whatnot, and then patching it all together with sales agent and then distributor. All these things are happening post production. So that period of time was really chaotic, and yeah, alhamdulillah, we managed to.
Listening to the story and listening to the difficult periods that you mentioned, what would you describe as, or what would you determine as the most difficult period that this film has encountered?
I mean, again, I'm only speaking from the parts I was involved in, because I know that perhaps the real answer to your question is during the shooting days, which Mehdi al-Husseini, it was Mehdi Husseini and Jawad who was over there as executive producers over in Georgia filming. Even though some of the filming was in London, which I was involved in, but the majority was over there. And I know stories from them about how crazy it was. I don't know how much detail I can go in, but they have things like the battle scene, you know, the amazingly choreographed battle scene. I can't recall how long. It's like
9 days, I believe they said.
9 days.
9 days. They cut it short from 2 weeks as it was planned, but.
And 2 weeks is a very tight schedule.
Yes.
for the length of this battle scene. I don't know if we can say how long the battle scene is, but it's a lengthy battle scene. You know, it goes through a lot of detail. And yeah, already 2 weeks is actually an impossible task. They had to squish it down to 9 weeks. So that's to do with, you know, scheduling, budgeting, all the other complications they had. Just in the film industry, you just got to cut corners all the time. And
speaking of cutting corners,
yeah,
were there scenes that you recorded that we had to take out from the film?
yes, there were. Like every film, there was, even though it's something very painful. Especially in this film, there was talks at one point to turn this into like some sort of Lord of the Rings trilogy, because like the history, you know, Brother Ali, how deep this history is.
Of course.
It's even a Lord of the Rings type trilogy wouldn't do justice, you know. So there was obviously it was just kind of discussions from the heart, you know. We should kind of do, because we want to, obviously not realistic, you know. This is the first production, for this production company, first film. So there's a lot of restrictions, but there were scenes, and I'm sure the production company will be elaborating on this during the, you know, after the film run finishes, with behind the scenes and what scenes were deleted. Sometimes films release these deleted scenes. I don't know.
Yeah, a question that pops to mind is: do you think that one day we can perhaps see these unseen or behind the scenes?
I hope so. I hope so. I'll definitely push from my side.
Definitely.
For the company to do that.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would love that.
Definitely. You mentioned a lot about, you know, the company and the teams that you have contracted with, Matthew Cooper's respected producer, and Craig Bruce.
Yeah. Bruce,
the
composer.
The composer, done a brilliant job as pair to.
He's such a lovely guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is. Tell us a little bit more. Tell us little bit more about the team, the core team, which made this phenomenal project happen.
Yeah. I will preface what I would say by I can't mention everyone. There's a lot of brilliant people we worked with, really talented. Even, you know, a lot of them you felt the connection with they had with Lady Fatima in this production. But you know, the key players, I guess, obviously you got Matthew Cooper as the producer, John the creative Stevenson the creative creative consultant. You have who did I mention now? Matthew.
Craig and John Stephenson.
Craig Pruis, the composer, and then I would add to that Steve Mercer, the video editor.
The video editor, yes.
Who, there's a lot of stories about him. Steve, because the editing phase. I mean, I guess I'll start with Steve then.
Yeah.
I don't know how much has been said about Steve in general.
Not much at all, actually.
He's a great guy, Steve.
Yes.
He's a great guy.
Yes.
If there's future projects in EK, I would love for him to be our editor going forward, because he's the thing with editors, they're known for being very picky in the way they edit. And you know, they're, again, depending on the production, sometimes you have directors working with the editor, sometimes they leave the editor to themselves and they come at the end and give them feedback. We had to mangle Steve in basically we were with him day in, day out. We were there breathing down his neck, because this is a sensitive part, you know. The shooting, obviously there was a lot of oversight on the shooting, but it's not going to be perfect. There's things that come through during the shooting. Can we use it? Can we not? How do we use it? We're literally having to we're like glue, stuck like glue with Steve, the editor, basically just combing. And again, I'll add, when they shoot, they're shooting, you know, it's not like they just shoot, okay, we shoot scene one, then we shoot scene two. Each scene has different angles,
Of course.
multiple
Yes.
takes.
Yes.
Sometimes the same action, and you have like a whole list of takes. You know, retake. So we're going through them all. We're looking at them, which ones are good, which ones are not. So with Steve, we're doing all this, and he's a very patient guy. I can say he's a very patient guy, and he's very very collaborative. We were able to be free in this area. I think this is one of the beautiful things that allowed us to succeed, actually, to get a good overall final cut.
Brilliant.
That's Steve. To mention a bit about him, and Matthew Coopers. He's the producer. You can't do a film without a brilliant producer.
Yes.
That's the rock of the team. You know, he's the one that opens the doors, finds avenues, brings everyone together, collaborates. Literally any problem, he has to solve it. Any problem. And as normal, there's even clashes that happen between people. You always got in films. You always got a tug of war, the creative tug of war. There's even like a political thing going on. It's a big production. A lot of people involved from many different angles. Even like the costumes. You have teams of people getting the costumes ready. So Matthew Coopers is that man in the middle, and he's just balancing everything. And every time there's a problem, Matthew, we've got a problem, solve it. and he's brilliant guy. He's very resourceful, a lot of credit goes out to Matthew.
Can you tell us as to what was his role in the shooting and some of the things that perhaps the audience don't know?
Matthew. I mean, he's involved in everything. Everything has to go through Matthew, the producer. Everyone has to go. Again, so just maybe some general information. Don't know how people. A producer in a film, he's running the show, because you always hear about the director of films. That's the one that gets the spotlight.
Yeah.
But I really believe after this experience, the producer's the gem, the one people really need to pay attention to, because their job is by far the most stressful job. By far, because he's got to look after the director. He's got to make the director happy. Then he's got the cast. Then he's got the production company. Then he's got the finances. Then everyone's coming down his throat. So when it comes to the shooting, same thing. He's there. Again, specific stories I wouldn't be able to, because that was Mehdi and Jawad's involvement.
Inshallah, we will have them in the upcoming.
Yeah, poke them and get some stories out, because they have a lot of stuff.
Definitely. What about? What can you tell us about John Stephenson?
John, yeah. It's starting to sound like I'm exaggerating because how I'm portraying, but really these are the people. Like I have a belief they were selected for this project, and I hope for them to go become closer to the lady once they see more of the impact that inshallah this film has. But yeah, they're all special, and their characters are suitable for their role. It's like, okay, John. John, creative consultant. So he's, as a creative consultant, he's obviously, as the title says, consulting about any creative aspect of the project. That's covering any creative aspect. You have in the shooting, you have the framing, you have VFX, you have the colors, anything that has a creative flair to it. He's consulting. But the thing is, actually, because he's got directing experience, and I don't know if there's any fans of Jim Henson, who Jim Henson's the one who created the Muppets, Sesame Street. This huge phenomenon that was in the early 90s and the 2000s. And John was the CEO of Jim Henson's Creature Shop. Jim Henson's known, like he's a creative genius. Like he's recorded in history. Like he's someone really, he's a what do they call it? He revolutionized the work that he was doing. He's known for this. So for John to be the CEO of his Creature Shop, the Creature Shop is where they design all their creatures for their productions that they used to do with Jim Henson. So John was the CEO. So he's talented. He's a really creative, talented guy for them to have put him in that position, and he brought that over to the film. So when you're watching the film and the comments we always get, how beautiful it looks.
Yes,
it looks like a painting. Everything looks so ethereal. Everything. That's John.
That's
That's
all
John.
John's
Yeah,
work.
he's got that eye for it. Brilliant. Yeah, the framing, the way it is. You don't pay attention to all the details, but everything is specific. Where the person is, how far, how close, how that camera moves. This is all like.
And he is an artist, I believe.
He's an artist. Yeah, he draws.
Wow.
Yeah, even like the storyboards. You know, the storyboards. And that,
Yes,
yeah, all that kind of stuff. So he's very creative in that area. And then also he's a very soft-hearted guy. I have to mention this as well. Very soft-hearted guy. The last comment he gave me before we parted ways, we're still in touch, but I mean officially in terms of the project.
Of course.
It was when we were watching the film put together in a surround sound, and then we were having something to eat afterwards. Me and Jawad were having something to eat, and they were still in the room. And I think John was getting ready to leave, so he popped by, and then he had a little chat with us, like to say, final words, whatever. And I remember the last thing he said to me. He's like, you know, Malik, why I like working with you guys? You guys don't have an ego. And that's very rare in the film industry.
Of course.
Yeah, that's what he told me. And I told him, I swear, I replied to him, I told him, you know what, John? We like working with you because you guys also, you don't have an ego. And that's one of the things we noticed about you.
Beautiful.
Because really, that's the truth. The film industry is known for egos.
Yes,
Huge
I know. Very
egos.
well.
Biggest egos in the world.
Yes.
The guys we got, they were down to earth. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
They were down to earth. Sometimes we'd be right in the middle trying to figure something out, this side, that side. But it's always clear that it's about the film. It's not about, ego kind of things. Yeah.
Who says actually
exactly,
go?
yeah. I'm the director and you go, no,
Yes.
and I'm this and I'm no. It was always about the film and the production.
You spoke about how you want the executive producers or the producer, for example, Matthew or John Stephenson as a creative consultant. And you mentioned their connection with the lady. Give us an insight as to how the team as a whole, from all these different backgrounds, we've had Muslims, of course, working on this film, from all sects, or from various sects, let's say, and we've had Christians and I don't know if there were Jews alike, and there were, of course, non-believers, as in atheists or agnostics. How did they all holistically resonate with the lady's character and her story as a whole?
Yeah, so I can comment holistically, and then I can even give you a story I think that will really hit home in this regard. But generally, the experience I had is always this like sense of fascination people have, and a very genuine fascination. Whenever people start to understand the story of the lady, I remember speaking to some of the cast members as well during the London shooting. The character of Omar as well, the actor of Omar, and various other ones as well. And they were just fascinated by her story. I don't know, it's just when they understand the lady, it's like something sits right for them. It's like they accept the lady. There's no friction about, because there's the negative light on Islam that we have today, and we have all these this propaganda against Muslims, and the West is very much affected by it. But when it comes to the lady and her story, it's like something natural. They can take it in, and they find this fascination about her and her character, and even to the point of one of the actors, I forget which one, was telling me how, I start thinking about the women in the West, and I'm looking at the lady, and I'm looking at our culture, and it's making me think about how we deal, like even to this kind of deeper thoughts, let's say, which the lady is inspiring them to think about. It's like making them reflective about what it's obviously there's the story of the lady and her sacrifice, and the link between terrorism. This is a core message that we want people to get, but it goes even deeper to how we're living our lives, in the Western world. I got this from some people, but I want to bring one story as well to wrap up on this point, if you wouldn't mind, on Craig Pruis.
Yes.
And he's the one I didn't speak about, but he's tied to this question. Because he's out of everyone, he's probably the one I felt he had the strongest connection with the lady by a lot. I had the role of communicating with Craig during the composition period. So feedback that the team had, I'd have to give it to him, back and forth. And obviously, I think it's known that we put 101 restrictions, as we obviously would need to. basically no instruments other than a few specific war instruments and vocals, synthesis, and specific restrictions that are in line with the religion. And so he had an impossible task from the beginning, very, very difficult task. And as any creative person does, they take on jobs that challenge them, and he done that, and you could tell he was really challenged by this and really struggled at times. But that's the beautiful thing about him, because he was ready for that challenge. So as a part of that journey, and my role in communicating with him, it's trying to bounce ideas back and get him to think about things in the way that we want them. Obviously, there's a certain vision about the film. We need the sound to match the lady and her presence. It's the film has a feeling. We need it in that way. So I have to bounce ideas back with him. And a lot of times he's trying to figure out. He's struggling, and then it got to a point where he started telling me that, Malik, I'm calling the lady to help me. He used to tell me this, like I want the lady to inspire me, and that kept developing over time. Every time I'm on a call with him, throwing ideas back, and he's telling me, Malik, one time he told me, Malik, today I sat down and I actually prayed to the lady. I called out to her, and suddenly I felt inspired. I felt this inspiration, and I went straight to my studio and I started. And he brought results. I could see the results. They're like, there's a feeling about it, the way he's doing it. And then it developed further, where I'm in a position where I'm giving him dua of al-Habib, a certain dua from the lady herself, and he's going away reading it, and he went with it. He got lost in this realm of the lady. Yeah, wow. He fell in love. This man fell in love with the lady. He fell in love with the lady for sure. And the results prove it. When you sit in cinema, because the worry in the beginning was that people are going to sit there and feel like, hey, what's this weird sound? It's not cinema sound. But that doesn't happen. You go sit there, it's all halal, it's in line with what the restrictions, but you don't feel anything. You feel like I'm in a real film here. It's a cinematic score that he's put together.
Wow, what a fascinating insight this was.
Yeah, it's really
uplifting to see that a non-Muslim generally has really resonated with that story that much to ask the lady herself to assist him in making her project or her story become in the most beautiful way that it can be. Yeah, very, very fascinating and very phenomenal, I would say. I would like here to ask you and conclude by asking, what is or what are the next plans for EK, and what are the future plans that you have down the line?
This is a question that people throw in, and I like this question because it's always telling me that people are already thinking about the future and what's to come. Some people, they're stuck in the past. Some, they're stuck in the present, especially when it comes to what we're doing. But those looking towards the future is something that is in line with the whole ethos at EK or even at the union.
We even had a reaction from an individual who had just watched the film, and they asked, or the interviewer asked, she said, what would you have done different or etc. He was like, nothing. It was very beautiful, and I'm asking them, I wish it was longer. Yeah. He says, I wish it was longer. I wish it was, the film was longer, and for more films to come.
More films, yeah.
Definitely.
So yeah, I mean,
let us know what's next and the next future plans.
I mean, I'm not anyone to be able to decide what's next, and all I can say at the moment, what's clear is that the purpose of EK and the Lady of Heaven, while at core it's to deliver the message of the lady, it's to propel the production company into a prosperous future, where I can imagine this, and this is what the team are hoping for, is we become a very successful giant in this field of pumping out films, and there is no shortcoming or shortness in amount of history that we have or history that we need to tell even. You know, the lady's story is very central, but even the lady's life, how many films can you make about it? You know, the lady's life, and then, you know, the Prophet's journey, and then the Imams alayhim salam, the companions of the Imams alayhim salam, the righteous companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him. There's endless things. So I can imagine, and I'm hoping for, I'm not saying this is what's happening, but this is what's happening at the end of the day. This is where we're heading to. Inshallah, it's happening.
Inshallah.
Films, you know, continuous films, and then, you know, ideas that have been spoken is doing series. You know, the most famous series in our recent time, the Game of Thrones.
Yes.
You know, huge budget. I don't know off the top of my head. Each episode, I believe, tens of millions per episode, because they do really, you know, a lot of CGI. They got dragons flying around, all sorts of things. I haven't seen it, but
neither.
I've heard of it a lot. Endless words. So we need to be the next Game of Thrones. You know, doing series about this history. Specifically, what's next? It's yet to be announced. We'll have to wait and see. And I'm sure that everyone will be very excited.
Everyone has ideas. Is it going to be about the life of Imam Ali alayhi salam now? Okay, so the lady, the peace be upon her, she was martyred. And what happens next?
Exactly.
Where do we go next? People are saying Imam Hussein, make a movie on Imam Hussein for the first time. Introduce
that would be great, though, isn't it?
Of course, Karbala being depicted. It is going to take us to a different world, I believe, in a different realm at all. People are also eager about, have had actually multiple requests to pass through to say and film about Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam. And what people don't know about the lifespan of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq is filled with events. It is so filled with events that one can make a spectacular movie out of. Remember, there is a clash between the Umayyads and the Abbasids, the position of the companions of Imam al-Sadiq in between, and there are some activities that happen actually, you know, from within the ranks. It is if I was to imagine it and just imagine putting the script together, it will be something phenomenal and definitely challenging to a lot of historical films out there.
If EK told you al-Habib, you decide you'd go for
Imam Ja'far
Sadiq alayhi salam.
Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. If it was
the next film is in your hands, what do you pick?
I would say in order to continue the series, we have to go systematically.
Straight after.
I feel that if it was to me, obviously, I would like it to be systematic. Although I'm sure that the time would come for Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq and all the other Imams for their stories and their characters and their figures and what they taught, blessings be upon them all, is deserving to be given and introduced to the non-Muslims. It's like we're hiding treasures and we're being very stingy and saying, no, it's just for us. That's not the right way. It's time to show and share our treasure to some degree with the outside world.
Because, you know, just something that came to mind as you say that, you know, because it's interesting. You know, this film it's like we're passing a piece of the puzzle to the Western world, or even to the non-Shia world. But imagine, in a number of years or 5 years, and another handful of films have been made. It's just we're connecting all these puzzles, and that whole picture. We want so desperately for the world to know about these holy characters from the first to the last. But I also think about the
prophet.
The previous prophets. There's something beautiful I've always felt about the previous prophets and their connection with the Ahlul Bayt times. There's the backwards as well. That needs to be brought in somehow, you know?
Definitely. There's always ways and unique measures.
We should start from the beginning of creation.
We perhaps should, without a doubt. Why not?
We skipped a lot before we...
Definitely. We could do some way in a very creative way where we, bring forth all of the stories before prophets. The what we have of reports, obviously, historically, that is accurate and everything, in a very unique way. You never know.
No,
there's always ways, and also to go outside the realm, which is going into, for example, the Day of Judgment, for example.
Exactly.
Going outside
so much,
to see. You see what you have promised as Enlightened Kingdom, and what you've written in your website. When one goes to your website and sees that quote, or who is or who are Enlightened Kingdom, where you promised to bring a revolutionary start and improve the cinematic industry in a very unique way. I'm going to go ahead and put it up. I want to go ahead and put up and read it out for the.
And while you do that, there's again the stories of the future. Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, his reappearance.
Of course.
We are, from my understanding, you know, we can go into that area as well.
Yeah,
you know, what will happen, and because we have narrations describing these events, the companions of the Imam, how the Imam will reappear. That's a whole other side of the coin, you know.
Without a doubt.
The promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Something that is very beautiful and was very striking to me when I first saw this statement. When you go to the Enlightened Kingdom website and you go to the About Us and you read, Enlightened Kingdom is a film production company based in the United Kingdom. Our goals include changing the history of cinema through the improvement of film philosophy and style. Our vision circles around the idea of the need of films to have deeper meaning and connection with the audience, and to capture the hearts and souls of the people across the globe.
No.
What a powerful,
100% in line with
powerful goal that you have, and very, very hopefully that our future, your future as Enlightened Kingdom will be very prosperous with tens of movies to come and more, perhaps a series one day, and for more growth and flourishing hopefully in the days to come.
That's beautiful. If I can add my last words here to this point. This is a very important quote because the film industry now, it's known that it's basically run dry.
Yes.
They've gone in every possible avenue, you know, history, novel books, you know, they've now seemingly, the only door left for them is remakes now.
Yes.
They're going back to all the classic films and remaking them.
The dryness is being glimpsed now.
Maybe really, sometimes they get something, they find, oh, here's something, and it comes a hit. They do. Yes. But it's very known, and this is not a criticism from like our side. This is common criticism.
Of course,
you know?
of course.
One of the things people are saying is people are heading towards the indie filmmakers because they're kind of outside the box. So the unique thing we have is basically the greatest stories of humanity that have yet to been told. So we fill that gap now, inshallah. And that's the quote there on the website, and inshallah we succeed in that.
A flourishing future and prosperous, inshallah.
Inshallah.
May Allah bless you, Brother Abdul Malik. Let us conclude, inshallah, with having a few comments to read out from the YouTube chats. Let us see what can we have. Brothers and sisters, you have this exclusive opportunity here to have your questions answered. Go ahead and ask your questions, and I, inshallah, will be reading it out to our guest here, Brother Abdul Malik. A question has been posed with regards to the CGI. Why did you choose CGI to depict the holy figures?
There was the issue of depicting the holy figures, which is something discussed very early, and of course, Muslims have seen the methods that have been applied before in previous films and series. You have the message where they don't show anyone. You know, you'll see no one there, but they're portraying the Prophet, peace be upon him and his family.
First person camera.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you'll have from the back, they'll be showing the Imams from the back, alayhim salam, and they're not showing any face.
Yes.
Or they'll have the overbearing light that is just
radiating.
Yeah, radiating. None of these we felt were suitable for a real cinematic production that is going to pierce into the Western film scene. They were all a bit off, or let's say cheesy, or just a Westerner watching that they wouldn't be able to really connect with that kind of portrayal. It's not something they were used to. So we needed something unique. We needed something innovative, something that will work. And the obvious solution that no one has done yet is CGI. It's within the religious permissibility, the realms of the religious, what the religion permits, and it's a bold new step as well. It's to give the film this unique flair to it. You know, the holy personalities, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, his family, shown to you in you know, the latest CGI technology. That's a huge selling point of the film to attract people towards the film, and it just seemed to fit in the puzzle, and it was the obvious thing to do, I think.
I even read one of the film critiques has written that actually this is a revolutionary measure in the film industry, correct?
I haven't seen this comment specifically.
I think I've read a film review critique.
Right.
Perhaps it can be listed in the description of the video when it's out. They mentioned that it is something along the lines, paraphrasing, that they are that this aspect of creating a CGI face of this, you know, caliber is something that is very revolutionary in the cinematography, you can say. Cinematic industry. So we have another question here, which states to the effect of, will there be a sequel or something like a movie about Karbala and all the Imams alayhimus salam? Is that something that you are intending to do as a production company?
So just as we spoke earlier, there's definitely plans for us to go into the next production, whether it's a sequel, whether it's you know, the history immediately after The Lady of Heaven, prior, you know, from a different angle. That's not something that's been announced yet. But when the time is right, definitely the audience will be hearing about it. They can be assured that from day one, even from the day that Lady of Heaven production began, there were plans to follow it up with further productions. So it's just a matter of time. Enjoy The Lady of Heaven for now, and hopefully very soon you'll be hearing about the future when it comes to EK.
Excellent. So let us see if there is another question to be asked. Many are asking about the countries and when will the film be available in other countries other than the United States?
Yeah, I'm seeing Australia is being asked about. It's the standard answer. Right now it's US. The distribution for US is ongoing. We are planning and hoping, you know, as many regions as possible, theatrical. And then, you know, the natural course, of course, would be digital after that. The times, exactly when, none of that's been announced. So you'll hear it from EK. Follow them on social media. Follow the Lady of Heaven on social media.
A comment asks, if there was something that you would have changed in the film, what would it be?
What would have changed? I mean, personally, I would have made it. I would have wanted, like, just as my personal view, I would want the film to be longer.
Longer. I think that's a unanimous.
What's the length of the film? I can't recall.
2 hours, around 21 minutes with the credits. 2:21.
Like, yeah, 3 hours. I would have loved a 3 hour, even longer. You know what I mean? Because the thing is, long films do work. Yes. Lord of the Rings works. There's other longer films that are not on the top of my head. But the issue is, the longer the film is, the harder the distribution phases. Cinemas tend to like shorter films. They're the ones that get in easier. Yes. So strategically, we had to cram it down a little. But I would have preferred it to be longer. That's the biggest thing for me, because you can tell more the story.
Of course.
You can take your time. You know, the scenes can be longer. That's the main thing for me, I'd say.
What about the things that you could have added into the script?
Added?
Yes.
What I would have added?
Knowing that you also have read this portion of history very carefully, and you are very well acquainted with the historical events of that period, what would you have added or wished to be in the film?
I don't want to be too specific, because I think if I say what is added, then that confirms that's not in the film.
Okay.
But let's say I would have added more. Again, I'm not going to say whether it is or isn't. Okay. But more of the prophets of old, as I told you. Okay. About their link with Ahl-Bayt. I don't know if how much of that you could fit in. You're very restricted, but yes. I just, what it is, just on this point, if I can quickly elaborate.
Of course.
The Western world have this connection with, obviously, their history with Christianity, and they share a lot of the names of the older prophets. So there's this thing that I feel very strong about in terms of the Western world knowing the older prophets and their link with Ahl-Bayt. I think it would be something fascinating. So more of that, whether it's in there or not, in any capacity, you have to find out for yourself.
Excellent, excellent. I urge the viewers to write their questions so that we may be posting them or posing them to the executive producer.
There's a nice comment here.
Yes.
It's not a question, but someone said, there is Hollywood, and then there was Bollywood, and now there is Rafida.
Of course.
But
that was
I
beautiful.
will correct them. It should be Rollywood.
Rollywood.
It should be Rollywood. Like Bollywood, they added the B. They changed Hollywood, they added the B. It should be, technically, it's just a technical point here.
Yes, yes.
Rollywood.
Rollywood, Rafida.
Isn't there Nollywood? There's Nollywood as well.
There's Nollywood?
Nigeria, yeah, they have a booming film industry.
Wow.
Yeah, Nigeria they've been climbing the game. I don't know where they've reached, but it's been.
Yeah. There are many questions being repeated. Will they be making other movies? That question has already been answered. They expressed, or the executive producer has expressed, that they are definitely going to work on future films as they proceed prosperously, hopefully, inshallah. We have another question.
Yes, brother.
That states, what were the set goals for this movie? As in, what did you hope to achieve by making this movie?
The core goal is none other than to give the world their right of knowing this brilliant story. I mean, the right, firstly, for the lady herself, to be honest, before that, of the world knowing of her story and her her magnificent character, and her oppression and her struggles and her sacrifices. The lady has this right over humanity from our theological perspective. And then secondly, the people have a right to know. The lady, the thing with the lady herself, she's been in the bubble of the Shia, within their grasps for a very long time, but she's not restricted and belonging to us. She's for mankind, like her father was. So for the people to find out about her and to connect them with the lady, and one of the things I say is the thing that would make me happiest is if a non-Muslim walks out in the cinema and tells themselves, I would really like to go and read more about this lady and who she was and her story. That for me is a beautiful thing that could happen, inshallah, and it definitely will. And inshallah, it has already, and we're seeing the reactions coming in.
Inshallah, inshallah. I here conclude, inshallah, this.
Sorry, brother, forgive me. There's one question I think is a very important question.
Excellent. Okay, go ahead.
Someone says here, even though you should be asking the questions, it popped up.
No
how
worries.
can we persuade our non-religious friends to watch the film? I think this is very important.
I actually did not see that.
Yeah,
Probably
Zain Ibrahim on YouTube. Great question. For me, when it comes to this film, I like to keep it broad and general and try to entice them about why they should watch the film. Introducing the lady to them, and trying to make it relatable to them as a lady who her story is untold, as the quote says, and a woman who single-handedly shaped and shook the Middle East, and took on the theocracy that existed at the time in her life, and was able to stand as a woman in that time, in a time where they would bury their daughters alive. She boldly stood up as a woman in that time, and she was able to leave a message that changed history, and telling them that she's a woman that has been influential like her father, the Prophet Muhammad, and trying to get them to think like there's this historical character, because Westerners, generally speaking, they're intrigued by history. They like to know about history, and especially if you can introduce this character that is a woman in a time where daughters were being buried alive, was able to take on a government, specifically a theocracy, and sacrificed, this is another key point, sacrificed everything, even her own life, and you don't know about it. And you might even tell them things like, Pakistan or Iran have banned this film. It reveals a lot about all the crimes you see committed by governments in the Middle East. this can get the mind of, in your case here, a non-religious friend. I'm assuming you mean a non-Muslim also. Can intrigue them to go to the film to see, okay, who's this character. I need to know about who this was, and that's one of the doors, inshallah, that could interest them.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Brother Abdul Malik.
May
If
Allah
there
bless
is
you.
any additional question you'd like to tackle, please do mention. And I believe there is a similar question that was already stated, but in a different format slightly. The question comes is, I wish to get my media teacher interested in the movie. What should I say which will be convincing?
If your media teacher, again, is a non-Muslim, the same as what I said before. But generally, again, I think with a media teacher, just explaining to them about, I guess, the technical feats as well of the production. It really depends on their background, because you might come in telling them that, you know, this film is, you know, done this groundbreaking CGI effort in terms of showing certain characters, but depending on her and her background, even the idea of Prophet Muhammad is shown in the film with CGI. That's something that's like, people think, okay, what's this? I need to see for the first time, because everyone's heard, you know, the stuff about portraying Prophet Muhammad and whatnot in the West. So depends. I think about the media teacher, her background, what will capture her the most. Yeah, I think that's good. There is a question as well that I saw here that I think would be good. What do you think will be the outcome of the ongoing relationship between the Muslims and the Bakris? He means obviously the so-called Sunnis. And do you envision significant numbers of them becoming Muslims? Which I think he means becoming Shia, since they are Muslims already. The ongoing relationship, for me, that isn't the thing on the top of my list, to be honest. In terms of, you know, it's not making this film. It's not about, okay, well, what's our relationship going to be? How is it going to affect? You know, that should never be the number one thing. We're here for the lady, for portraying her story. The outcomes, of course, nobody wants a negative outcome. No one wants a breakdown in relationship and whatnot. But, you know, at the end of the day, we're here to tell a story. We want to get the story of the lady out to the world completely as it is, untarnished. It would be horrendous for us to come in the Day of Judgment and portray something to the lady where there's a piece missing of her story, especially if it's the pieces that I'm assuming many would want to be removed. Removing, you know, who it was that killed her, or, you know, any of the sensitive areas. So that's the first thing, is that's not really very high or at all really on my list. But to answer the question, I think the relationship will improve drastically. I really believe the unhealthy, if you've seen any unhealthy relationship between the Shia and those who refer to themselves Sunni, if you've seen any unhealthiness there, it's due to the Shia's approach, I believe, in terms of I would really call disingenuous or immature approach. The mature approach, which is being very frank and open about your beliefs, even if there is a pushback, even if there's a strong pushback, remaining firm in terms of your narrative and your views, being authentic about your views, because the worst thing that can damage a relationship is when people feel you're being disingenuous or even lying. That breaks all the bridges between the two communities. But the point is about establishing our views, establishing our narrative, and overcoming that hurdle. There is that hurdle, of course, of whether it's offense or uncomfortableness from the other side, or whatever it may be. There's overcoming that hurdle. But once that hurdle is overcome, that's when there can be a balanced, healthy relationship, dialogue, a balanced dialogue where both parties are able to express themselves maturely. I think that maturity aspect needs to settle, which the film, I believe, will really do wonders in helping us achieve. Which, to be honest, even prior to the film, a lot of the efforts, you know, again from the union, from Sheikh al-Habib, have been successfully achieving this. I think everyone can acknowledge that today there are a lot of healthy discussions happening between the two groups, where it's actually a dialogue, it's actually a two-way communication. Is it perfect? No. Is there a lot of work to do? Yes. Should it be more mature in many ways? Definitely. But there are actual dialogues happening that would never have happened a couple decades ago. It would just, there wasn't enough stability for that to happen. If there was to be any engagement, it would be very frictionless, you know, because nobody's used to it. Now we're getting accustomed to it, and the film will allow that to happen. So the short answer, to summarize, is a film like this will help us drastically improve our relationship and open the doors for a lot of them to become Shia as well, actually, on top of that.
Inshallah.
Thank you.
Inshallah. In multitudes, inshallah.
Inshallah.